Hello! Woo! Welcome
to episode
number
100!
I feel like, when people celebrate their Instagram followers, I'm just going to celebrate 100 episodes of a podcast.
Okay, so can we go run to the store? We'll get the 100 balloon things,
yeah.
the number 100.
Ooh, we
should have done.
And we should take a picture and put it on our Instagram.
Fuck yeah, and by the time you're listening to this, it should already be on Instagram. Or it won't, because we both have shit to do after this. But
yeah, we don't have time. Somebody
quick, call staff. Someone help.
Grab us a 100 balloon person.
Dude, it's 100 episodes.
Wow.
All I wanted was to get a champagne bottle, shake it up, and pop it. But then I look around and I'm like, this is tens of thousands of dollars in equipment.
It would have for sure taken out the camera, and then that would have been your 100th episode.
Well, that would have been it. Good 100th episode. I'm stoked.
So I know we were like sitting here and we were like, okay, we got to come up with a good topic for the 100th episode. The 100th episode.
100.
So bring us in on our topic, Ani. Let's just dive into it.
We're going to talk about looking back at where you've come from, looking at the correct things where you're at today to really figure out where in the hell it is you're going. And I think it's so fascinating. The things that people will focus and concentrate on, even current day, that literally mean nothing.
I always say this, and I've had a few posts that I'll just post on Instagram or my blog or whatever, and I'm always like, you're just not there yet. Because people will start bitching and complaining or worrying about, not even bitching and complaining. Maybe you're bitching and complaining, but you're just kind of scared and you're worrying about problems that you're just not there yet. Like, why are you thinking about 10 steps ahead? And guess what? The person you're going to be 10 steps ahead, you're not going to give a shit about these little problems. They're going to seem so minute.
Yeah.
Is that a word? Minute?
Yes, it's a word.
I was like,
it's the word
minute. Yeah. They're going to seem small. So problems that you think are big, you're not going to be the same person. And so that's why I'm like, focus, stay in your lane. Like, where are you at right now?
Well, and even going back to obviously BMS Con 4, we finished a couple weeks ago, which by the way, I still feel like I need more sleep. You know what? Rolling from there straight into more work, straight into the holidays. Yeah. I'm like,
I was telling Garrett that this morning. I was like, I'm sorry. The last 3 weeks are like a blur. Like, I'm like, it's December. Where did November go?
Even some of the students from BMS Con 4, they had posted something, and I guess they had tagged me and you, and I hadn't seen it yet because I wake up to about 100 notifications a day. Ooh. And they're like, why hasn't Ani answered? Why hasn't Danielle answered? Why isn't no one answering? Finally, I logged on. I'm like, guys, shit. It's been the holidays. I'm also in the salon and doing this. It's just so much. Some days I'm like, what year is it? It's still the same year. We're still in 2019, guys. It's cool.
It was such an amazing week, though. And I know we did a podcast right after the event just talking about, I'm still kind of riding the high out a little bit.
I absolutely am. And you know what's so funny? I actually went to the people of BMS Con 4 and I'm like, I want to hear from you guys. What have you accomplished? It was 1 week out. I'm like, we're 1 week out.
Yeah.
1 week ago, we were starting the event. Where are you? And they were like, I have dropped clients. I canceled all my weekends. I'm not taking any more on. They've been doing such phenomenal things.
Awesome.
And then what really inspired this topic for me today is mastermind, because it's a very open topic about money, which I know is so taboo. And well, yeah. And it's not like we're posting it being like, oh yeah, well, I make this much money. But really, they send me their income all the time.
Yeah.
And I mean all the time.
Well, the thing is I always pitch this as a tool to really double and triple your income because I was able to do that behind the chair and be a mom and work 3 days a week and work less and make more. And so that was really my whole pitch. It wasn't another hair extension technique or whatever. It was hey, enjoy life and make great money doing it. And so to me, the numbers are very important because it's not just the tool. If you don't know how to use the tool and you're not making money, then who cares? It's just another hand-tied system. You know what I mean?
For sure. And so one of the girls in Mastermind just a couple of days ago, or maybe this was yesterday, she messaged me and she's like, holy shit, Balzani. She's like, last year in November, I made $3,200. This year in November, she made almost $14,000. Right. And so I'm like, that's almost 5 times your income in 1 year.
Right.
And so I see that. And so of course, her and I, we were texting back and forth, oh my God, this is so great. And I love to repost the things they send me. And I always mark out the artist's name and face because, I'm not posting their income.
Yeah.
And then I posted hers. And then another mastermind, Academy girl, she messaged me. She's like, I hadn't taken a look at my numbers.
Yeah.
And now that I see them, oh my God. And then I posted hers.
Well, you know what's crazy about artists is they're so guilty of hustle, work. And it's almost like they don't want to, or they're so exhausted at the end of the week, they don't even want to admit their numbers or take a look at their numbers. It's just take anything that comes my way. Grandma, grandpa, family, Sally, my best friend, dogs cuts, kids cuts, toe waxing, like whatever it is. Like it's taught in our industry is like fill your books. Like however you do it, fill your books and then you've arrived. And the problem is like stylists are running themselves into the ground, and and when they actually sit down and do the numbers, they're like, I'm making $12 an hour.
Well, and I think because sometimes it's almost like that. What is it? The ostriches that put their head in the sand when they're like stressed out or whatever. It's kind of that. It's like, well, if I don't see it, it's not a problem because I can't see the problem. Well, it's like that's like saying you have an infection and if you just don't look at your leg, it goes away. Well, the infection is still there. Like, it's still a problem.
Right.
So when I started reposting it, then a second girl sent it to me and hers was like massive. And she even said, she goes, I didn't realize how far I'd come in a year. She goes, but now that you posted that, I took a look at my numbers and oh my God. And then from her, I had 3 more artists that are inside of the academy message me going, holy shit. Some like 5 times the income, another girl tripled it, like a few of them. It was doubling and tripling numbers in 1 year.
Right. Imagine if you didn't do hair and you just were an employee somewhere and all of a sudden you're like doubling and tripling your income. Like that's like nuts. Like that'll change the story for you.
Yeah, and it just doesn't. And what I think is so cool is that because even like I'm guilty of this literally to this day right now. I just got out of a meeting with our CFO and that led me into like talking to more staff and then writing emails and like doing so much that I've even forgotten to take a minute to just be like, this is a year ago.
Right.
Where the hell was I December?
Where were we? Where as a company? Like and I'm just going to touch base on this. Like last November, I had a total salon walkout. It was literally left to me and Ani, and I was like, oh my God.
It was like me, you, and like one other person, a couple other people.
Yeah, pretty much. Was Crystal with us at that point?
She
just
came on
new,
right
super
after.
New. So it was like
but we had Katie.
It was like me, you, and Katie. So it's like literally, I was like, oh my God. And so I had just expanded my salon that year and everything. And so not only that, but my husband was in our like education pretty heavy, and it was crazy to even look at this last event that we did. That like our staff that showed up, it was incredible. Like everybody showed up. We talked about it on our last week's podcast where people just showed up left and right, and I was like, oh, I feel like I have a solid team. And this was also the first big event that we had done without Garrett, because I kind of took ownership back of my company, and I wanted it to go in a different direction. So even when I look at how far we've come in a year, I feel more focused and more clear and stronger than ever, knowing like what we're doing matters, but also having a clear vision and path for what I want to do. And if you can't look at where you were, you don't know where you're going to go.
Yes. And it's so crazy that even student base wise there was a little bit of chaos and whatever was happening. And I sat here today and actually 100% of our mastermind students are going to the academy.
I know. Isn't that awesome?
And I love hearing it because to me, that tells me that
this is working.
Fuck yeah, it's working. When someone sends me something and they're like, hey, my X time, I don't even know what 5 times something is. It's doubled, quadrupled, quintupled. What the fuck is 5? What 5 times?
What's minute? Minute.
Minute is tiny and minuscule. They did
Minute.
not minute their income.
No,
but when they're sending me messages like, hey, I doubled my income, I tripled my income is 5 times what it was last year. Like, there's no denying that. I come to that when it doesn't matter if like certificates don't matter. Like small clients, like clients like kids or cuts that are paying you very tiny amounts, that doesn't matter. Like the stress of one client telling you to fuck off honestly doesn't matter. Like if someone leaves your salon, it doesn't matter. It's so hard to gain perspective on how much you've accomplished if you're not willing to look back. So that's why, like, yes, we had so much chaos last year. And at the time, oh my God, it was terrible. It was painful. I was going through my own personal shit. Like, there was just shit everywhere. There's no part that I can be like, this one thing was solid.
But I felt like, though, it was like a turning point for me. It was a turning point for everything, or it was like, for me, it was like my vision. I could see it kind of like almost going all over the board. And I had to take a hard look at myself and be like, what do I want to do with this? We've built something up. It could be amazing. It is amazing. We know it works. So what are we going to do with this? And so this year was just like about like structuring. And it's so cool like that the entire mastermind converted, because last year we lost like our entire mastermind. Like it just probably half our mastermind, because it was kind of like a turning point. And this year it felt like such a natural progression. Like I was like, you guys have seen the results based on the curriculum that we've given you. Why wouldn't you continue to stay on and just double down on yourself?
Well, and I think you and I also taking a look back has also really led us on decisions that we make going forward. For example, like certificates.
Right.
Like this is a perfect example that we no longer certify people like for life, which I know like our industry is like, you're certified for life. This is not.
You know what?
But let's explain. Like, so here's the deal. Like, to explain, we used to do that. It'd be like, you come to a class, like, you're certified. Here's your certificate. It never expires. It's forever.
Right.
And then the problem that we really started facing is clients would go to these artists that were, quote, certified forever. And all of a sudden they would call DKW. They would email DKW. They would fly down to DKW and they'd be like, well, I went to your artist who said she's certified. And we're like, this isn't even NBR.
Yeah.
And they were claiming it to be, or they were, quote, doing NBR, but it was shoddy work, to say the least.
Well, here's the problem in our industry, and I don't know why our industry doesn't do this, and maybe certain states are different, but it's like you get your cosmetology license and you just pay the state to renew every year. You don't actually physically have to be doing hair or any kind of continuing education. I've worked in 4 different states, and none of them do you have to take any kind of continuing education. Like, you get that piece of paper and you're great. Like, if you didn't do hair for 5 years, but you kept up your license, you could go get a job at a salon, and somebody, like, you could go rent a space, and you could fuck some shit up. And when I mean fuck shit up, like hair.
Bad. Well, here's the deal. Some states do have continuing education. Missouri does not, but I can tell you that Illinois does. So they require you to take a certain amount of classes per year.
It should be like that across the board, in 100%. My opinion.
And even then, like, what blows my mind is you could take a class, fuck around the entire time on Instagram, still pay your, by the way, it's $50 every 2 years to keep your cosmetology license. Well, let's address that one. But you're still doing shoddy work.
Right. And you can't compare, you can't take somebody who takes their craft a little more serious. And I say this, I throw myself under the bus all the time. I'm like, I was a hobby hairstylist when I started. I did hair like randomly when I had time, and I made some good, I was gonna say some cash that I stuffed under the mattress.
All right, Mafia Danielle.
Yes, but like when I like really got into my craft, it was like I can't have my students that just like invest over and over again and continue in education be on the same kind of a list as somebody who took a one-time class, who kind of took a break for a couple years, who hasn't really done any MBR clients in the last year. Like, I can't, and the students that have put in the time and the money and the effort, they're like, oh, please don't, I can't, please, like, I have worked my ass off and I don't want to be on that same playing field.
Well, and that's the thing. That's why we really had to start differentiating. And I can tell you, like, yeah, there were totally, like, we just had our BMS convention, and that certificate and certification is valid for 6 months. And yeah, there were totally some upset people about it. And I'll talk about it openly. Like, I don't feel that anyone said anything wrong, but they were upset. They're like, but this, like, I took the class, and we're like, I hear you, but we don't know what your work looks like 6 months from now. We don't know what it looks like a year from now. And imagine that you are the owner of a company. Mm-hmm. Would you want to say, oh yeah, Sally took my online course 5 years ago. You should totally go to her. Well, you don't see the work. Well, and that's why we're holding it to such a higher caliber now.
The crazy thing is I never do it because I'm like, haha, I got you. I do it because I'm like, guess what? I want you to win. And you can't win just off, it's continuing education. You cannot win as a person. You can't tell me that you learned everything you needed to learn from even just one BMS class. Like, you have to be able to be like, okay, great, I learned a shit ton in the last 6 months. That was the most life-changing event of my life. But now let's put it into play. Let's get some clients in. Let's, get rid of men's cuts, kids cuts, whatever it is. Like, let's make the adjustments now that we've taught you for the last 6 months. You know what I mean?
Well, and even inside of that, think of it this way, because I know there's some people, they're like, oh, but I've been doing hair for 20 years. And I'm like, well, that's fucking great, but you've been doing NBR for barely 6 months.
Yeah,
and inside of that, okay, so let's look at it this way. Let's say your beadwork and your styling, or let's say like the logistical part of NBR, which is the beadwork, the stitching, the end beads, all of that is like beautiful. But then you take super shitty photos and your marketing is garbage. Guess what? You're not getting clients because your marketing is fucking shit. Right. Let's then flip it. Let's say you take beautiful photos and your marketing is beautiful, but your work is shoddy. Yeah. Then you might have a client once, maybe twice, but once they realize once they realize like something's fucked up, they're not coming back, which is why we say this isn't just, it can't be a one-off class, which is why Mastermind was created and now the Academy is here, is to literally assist and help and push them and make them level up.
Yeah, and it's so crazy because I like that you said that, because when we first started BMS, which was the education portion of Natural Beauty Rose, it was because I was like, we can't, like, one-day class is not working, and so we turned it into a 3-day class, and we started just doing it in Laguna Beach with like 15 to 20 artists. We did like a vision quest, we did like business, we brought in my husband, we did MBR, like it it was phenomenal. And people would leave there like on such a high. And I was like, we did it. We got rid of the 1-day class and now we did it. But then we were still facing the problems of they were like, well, wait, I had this client and I don't know if I'm here. And then we're like, okay, well, cool. We need a mastermind. And it wasn't like, haha, I got you. It was like based on what the students needed, which was they needed more education.
Yeah.
So then we gave them mastermind, we gave them more education. So then the last few years we had mastermind and people were killing it and crushing it. But then we're like, well, what if we organize it so that people could kill it at a more organized structure and pace? And we took it back to the old school basics of like going through school again. And that's really what we've restructured and redone this year. And so when people like get upset about the little things, I'm like, you got to understand, if you end up going through the academy, if you go through the mastermind and you are doubling, tripling, and quadrupling your income, this piece of paper you will wipe your fucking ass with.
Who gives a shit about a fucking, and that's why I say people focus on the wrong thing. I don't give a fuck if you literally took a dump on a piece of paper. If I'm making $20, $30, $40, $50, $70,000 a month, I will shit on a piece of paper and hang it on a wall. Like, who cares at that point?
Right.
But that's why I say people get focused on such the wrong thing.
Yes, you should focus on your craft.
Yes, and it's like, why are you focusing on this piece of paper? Which, let's say, okay, if you're in the academy, guess what? You're getting a new piece of paper every 6 months anyway, because you're graduating phase by phase. So we'll even put that part aside. But I've really found it's the ones that they're like, well, I don't need more education and I want to be certified for life. Well, guess what? Sorry, it's not going to happen.
No.
Because we have to take a higher stand for really the standard that we've set for ourselves inside of NBR, the standard we've set inside of BMS, and then just for all the companies as a whole and for our artists.
Right.
And let me tell you, because I sit here and I'm like, man, mastermind, literally 100% of the people moved into the academy
because they know it works.
There's a reason for that.
Right.
And I know like the newbies, like the people from BMS Con 4 haven't experienced mastermind and like
so they're scared, and there's like a lot of questions,
sure,
and there's
of
a lot of.
course.
I think too, when you're scared, you ask dumb questions like, "Well, why does this certificate expire in 6 months?" It's because you're like nervous. Like, I just invested so much, but you have to understand the person that you're going to become 12 months from now. It's not. It's such a small detail, and it was so funny because I remember when we were talking to BMS Con 4, and they were saying like, "Well, what's next and what's next?" And I'm like, "Listen, it was hard for me to wrap my brain around and be like, I want you guys to see," and that's why we kept playing videos of students inside of Mastermind because I'm like, I need you guys to look at their progression. I need you to stop getting it in your head about it, and I need you to trust the process. And so that's why it was such an emotional just experience in the whole event. And because I'm like, I can sit here and we can talk back and forth, but the reality is you just need to hold my hand and trust that I have 100 other students ahead of you that went through.
They've already proven that it works.
So there's a piece of me where I'm like, there was a moment inside of the event, and I said, I need you to trust the process. This is not a sales pitch nor a sales video. We have countless results. This works, and 100% of my mastermind converted into the new program. Trust your gut.
Yeah, and that's why. And I don't think to me, they're not dumb questions. They're just nervous questions.
Exactly.
They're
and that's
nervous.
What I want to bring up.
They're stressed. They're like, oh my God. And it's a what if, but what if I don't succeed? But what if I fail? But what if? And it's like, look, other people before you have already walked the path. And the way that everything's been structured now, like going back to our topic of this whole conversation, is you and I have looked back and we're like, okay, well, what worked? What did not work?
Yeah.
Where were we a year ago? Oh, remember that one thing that we did? That worked fucking great. Oh, shit. Right. Remember how we did certification at first where we had them send in a photo? That did not work.
Yeah.
It was so bad. It did not work. And you have to look back to be able to know where to go forward, but also don't let the most minute, tiny details of things distract you now.
Bog you down. Yeah. Even for us, I remember when Ani and I were kind of planning out the curriculum, and I was like shutting down. She's like, come back. I was like, literally like, there's just so many things. And then I was like, you know what? We have to structure it the best we know based on what we've done in the past, and let's deploy it. And every month, if we're willing to take a look at what's going on with the students, are they turning in work? How are they turning it in? Like if you can look back even month by month and figure out how to course correct, that's how you get huge results in your business. Like you don't wait 6 months and say like, okay, well, I did pretty good because I did cut, Saturdays off my schedule, or you know what? I did get a nice camera. Well, great. What if you had targets monthly, weekly, and you constantly were course correcting based on those targets? Like that's how you get huge results.
And it's just, I go back to Painted Hair. Patricia came she's so fucking nice. I actually have a call with her today.
Oh, nice.
And so she came to the event, and she had even said, she's like, I upped my prices. She said, I doubled my prices.
She lost 70%
of her clientele. and made $0 less. She made the same income with only 30% of her clientele. And I hear that and I'm like, man, that took some balls.
Yeah.
Like that took some guts to do. And really, I want you guys to just take a minute. Like we're coming to the end of a decade. We are coming to the end of a decade. Danielle,
That's crazy.
10 years ago, I was just licensed, newly licensed, little baby.
That's cute.
19-year-old baby.
Oh, I've been doing hair for a minute.
Where were you 10 years ago?
I was married. What was I doing 10 years ago?
How old are you now? 33, 34?
36. Thank
You're
you.
36?
I don't know. What was I doing 10 years ago? I'm 36.
So where are you at
Let's see.
26?
I had one baby and I hadn't started. I was just doing hair. I was just doing hair. I think I was doing hair like one day a week and I was still doing pretty good and I would only do extensions. And I remember my sister who did hair, she's like, how do you have so many extension clients? This is when I had a turning point actually. And I remember thinking like, well, I got a kid now and extensions make the most money. So I'm making.
I need more of those clients.
I was like, so I'm working one day and I'm making what you do in 3. Like literally, I was just coming in on Saturdays because I didn't have like a babysitter and I was too scared to leave my little baby alone. She was like 3-4 months old and I was like, I got to get back into hair. I'm going crazy. And it wasn't even, I didn't even have to work at the time, but I remember I was like, no, I'm just going to do extensions. And anybody who would try to book a color, I was like, no, if you want a row of extensions, like that's fine.
You want to know what one of the girls in the academy sent me? One of our mastermind girls. She goes, I had my highest month this month, and I had a $10,000 day yesterday. She goes, I'm blown away by BMS. Can't wait for DKW Academy. You fucking rock. And her month was, let me see, where is it? She had a $25,000 month, and one day it was 10 grand. One fucking day. And I got another one. She goes, another girl messaged me, and you'll love her. You know who this is. But she goes, I did $7,000 in 2 days, 2.5 days. Are you kidding me? There was a time where I couldn't make $7,000 in 2 months. Like, so when I hear someone go, hey, I made 10 grand today. Today.
Yeah,
today. Shit, are you kidding me? Do you know that I worked... Going back,
I was like, how many extension clients did she do?
I mean, you have to think though, 10 grand. If you do 3 at $3,000 a piece, you're already at 9.
Yeah.
So she probably did maybe 4 or 5 clients. Yeah,
I could do 4.
But it's crazy to think. So I started BMS jumping like into back, like where were we and where were you? 4 years ago when I started BMS in 2016, I was 26. I was still working 2 jobs. Did you know that?
You were?
I have.
When you started?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Because I had been doing NBR for about a year, but
what
the
was
marketing.
Your second job?
I worked at a retail store. I don't want to say it.
Which one?
I folded clothes and I did nothing else.
You worked at the Gap.
I did not, but let me tell you, girl, I can fold some fucking clothes. Let me tell you that. But I was working 2 jobs, 7 days a week, literally 7 days a week. If I did hair in the morning, I worked there at night, or sometimes I did all hair, or like on Saturdays, I'd flip flop and reverse, but 7 days a week I was working. And that was back in 2016 as I joined BMS. And when I hit, I believe it was, 9 months later is when I hit 15 grand. I already left by then.
You're like, I think peace out. I'm not folding any more of these goddamn shirts.
Fuck these shirts. I think those fucking pants, God, I'm torturous. But I really think about 5 months into BMS is when I was like, wait, because it was May, June, July, August, September, October. Yeah, about 5 months into BMS, I was like, I don't actually need to do this anymore. And I quit. But until then, I had worked 2 jobs. I mean, probably 5 years.
I think I hear a lot of stylists that work 2 jobs, and I think it's that they don't believe their capacity of what they can make as a stylist. Yeah. And it's just, they just don't. They like, our industry was taught like, hey, you're just a hairdresser. And I think it's slowly changing and evolving over the years, because you got to figure like programs like Vidal Sassoon and like Paul Mitchell, like they've only been around like the last 40 years. I mean, I'm going to probably be totally wrong, but if you look about but if you look about the evolution of our industry, like even like when cutting was evolving, like that's when Vidal Sassoon came around and like really restructured it, because before it was just like, yeah, pick up some hair and kind of cut it, and it was just like it wasn't as much artistic or structured flow to it. And so I feel like our industry has really like taken a turn over the last couple decades of just being more and doing more. But it was kind of taught like, oh, you're a hairdresser, like it's just a hobby and da-da-da-da-da. And now it is kind of coming around.
Well, and for me it was, I literally like, I just didn't know how to get more clients. Like I was doing, I can't say I was doing well. No, I thought at the time, like, I'm doing okay. No, I was fucking shitty and it was bad, but I didn't realize that at the time. Now looking back, I can see like, whoa, that was a really hard place. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to do what I have to do. Right. And that for me was working 2 jobs. And that's why when so many artists come and they're like, you don't understand. I don't have time. I'm overwhelmed. I'm busy. I work 2 jobs. I'm like, listen here, motherfucker. Yes, I do. I worked 2 jobs for almost 5 years, 7 fucking days a week. So if there's one thing that can't be questioned is my fucking work ethic, which is also why I moved so quickly with BMS, because I was like, well, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I'm exhausted. And I was like, I'm just done.
Yeah.
So and I look back now and I'm like, that was 4 years ago, Danielle. 4.
That was only 4 years ago that you had 2 jobs?
2016. About 4. It was, 16, 17, 18. 3.5 years ago. I'm sorry. 3.5 years ago.
I think, I'm trying to think back even to where I was like 5. I would say 5 years ago, I was actually just doing small classes and just small MBR classes. In fact, you came to the very last MBR class I did.
Yes, I did.
And that was the turning point again for me, because I was like, I can't just be a one class and done. Like, because I was in this weird phase where like I would do like one class and I'd like pour my little soul into it and like just trying to give people as much value as stuff I had learned that took me a decade. I was trying to teach in one class, right? And so people would leave, but then they'd have questions, and I was like, dude, I'm a mom. I'm working behind the chair. Like, I'm marketing my ass off. Like, I love you, but I can't answer every email because like DMing wasn't a thing even then.
Yeah.
So it was just like I felt like so rude, but I almost started to get a little rude when people would ask me questions via email. I'd just be like, hey, sorry it didn't work out, because I was just so tired.
For sure.
And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I felt like it started to like tarnish what I like knew could be an amazing tool. And then that's when I brought Garrett in, and that's when you came to the very last class where we're like, we're going to launch this thing called Big Money Stylist.
And then I came back 2 months later for BMS.
Big Money Stylist.
It's crazy. I mean, literally until this moment, I don't think I realized that. 3.5 years ago, I was working 7 days a week, 2 jobs.
I feel like I've known you for like 10 years.
Yeah, you've known me for 3.5 years. That's it.
Wow, that's crazy.
And to think now, almost 4 years later, we just stood on stage in front of 300 people. Right. I led the event with you. Like, life goes so quickly when you're willing to get out of your box and truly make hard decisions and decision after decision. But damn.
I think too, though, don't you think when you get to that place, it's not like the decisions are any less hard, but your capacity expands and you're like a stronger human being.
Absolutely.
And so you kind of go into, course correcting or letting things go as like, I know this is the next step. Like, I know that this is something I have to do in order to grow as a human being and to see the vision evolve. Because I feel like you've seen the vision as strong as I have. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
since day one.
Yeah. Like, I think you saw the stage, you saw the people, you were like, I'm going to be there. You know what I mean? You're like, I'm a big part of this. And I genuinely feel like you are. Like, it was so cool. Like, our whole staff showed up this last event, like, amazing. But it was cool. Like, you and I have, like, we've picked up this rhythm where I'm like, we got it. We're fucking unstoppable.
You can't fucking touch us.
But I think it's because we care so much and we know it works.
Absolutely. And it's just to
and
me,
we're
it's
both
just
living proof of it.
I'm like, Danielle, do you realize, like, I'm literally living, walking, breathing proof of the very first program that, like, and that's why when students come and they're like, but does it work? I'm like, I'm proof though.
Right.
I didn't start in California. I didn't start with a big brand. I had like 400 followers on Instagram. I think by the time I left, I had like 1,500. I did not have a big following and I was making 20 grand a month. I'm like, I'm proof.
Right.
I'm proof that it fucking works if you do the work.
Right.
So it just blows my mind to even sit here now and think like, that's why I start crying like a total asshole on a podcast.
I think you have a moment where you're like, shit. You know what I mean? You're just like,
we've done.
Wow. Like,
honestly, I'm just proud of myself. And sitting here thinking that, I'm like, damn.
Right.
It feels like I've been here 10 years. I've only lived here 2 years. I've been in BMS for 3.5. Like, it blows my mind to think about all of this. But that's why it's really so important to take a look back, because even this morning, I had a moment where I was like, am I doing enough? Am I not doing enough? I know, I don't know, to me of all people having this moment, but I was like, maybe I should just like do more and do this and do that.
Well,
like,
when you're in warp speed, you almost feel like it's hard because, like, especially, again, going back to event week, you're on such a high and you're doing so much. So when it slows down, you kind of panic. You're like, whoa, wait, I don't want to stop growing. You get like the regression panic. Like, wait, I'm not moving at 100 miles an hour. But you have to allow yourself those moments to recharge. You have to be like, ooh, like reel it in. And then you're like, okay, I hit back to like even. I don't want to regress. Mm-hmm. And so then you're like, all right, stay focused, stay focused, stay focused. And for me, I always tell my kids and I tell my staff, I'm like, the worst enemy is like boredom or just like staying. If you're not, what do you say? If you're not
progressing, you're regressing.
And it's true. If there's moments where you can take a minute to like appreciate, like, holy shit, like December was a crazy month, and like I'm gonna breathe for a few weeks in January. But that doesn't mean you go breathe for January, February, March, and then it rolls into May, and you're like, well,
I'm giving myself like 3 days at the end of December.
Yes.
Where I'm gonna turn off my phone. No one's getting a hold of me.
I literally it's so funny because I need like maybe 1 or 2 days is all. Like usually by Sunday I'm kind of antsy. I'm like, ooh,
I know. You started messaging me yesterday and I looked at it. I was like, Danielle, don't fucking do it.
Sundays are hard for me. You know, I have to like stay really busy. Like I'm ready to like get back to work. And so I have to like make a plan with my family. I'll be like, we're going Christmas shopping. Then we're going to go see a movie. Then we're going to go look at the lights. And they're like, Mom, you're nuts. I'm like, I will go like into this deep slump of like depression. If like, it's hard for me to like take time off.
Sunday is my one day that I'm like, nope. Like I'll work Saturday, I will work Friday night, but Sunday, hell no. That's why when I was like, Danielle, I'll message you tomorrow or I'll talk to you later about it.
I'm the opposite. Saturdays I take a pretty hard stance on like, nah, I'm good, but Sundays I'm like, I'm antsy again. What can I do? But you guys, I think like it's important to remember, like, look back and see where you're at, but also commit to kind of putting in the time and the effort to move forward and stop worrying about the little problems. Like take it one step at a time. Because I can promise you, we both can promise you from our experience, like the problems that you have now are not going to be the same 6 months from now. They're just not. And so I always say, like, when you have a checklist of things that you need to do, like don't allow yourself to get overwhelmed. Prioritize that list and just do a little bit every single day.
Yeah, and I really, like, literally, guys, I want you to go get a journal, go get a piece of paper, go get part of your grocery list. I don't care what it is. Go get a pen and paper and literally write it down. We are heading into January 2020. Where were you 10 years ago? So January 2010,
right.
Where were you? Where were you 5 years ago? January 2015. Where were you 2 years ago? And just really take a moment to write it out, and not just income. Like, yes, you need to look at your money, see what you were doing, especially all of you people inside of Mastermind going into the academy. I demand, I'm going to say it today during your live
this
training.
Is homework.
I demand you do it. You're getting homework live on a podcast. But really take a look at, monetarily, where were you? But then with your relationships, where were you? With your own personal growth, where were you? Like, because I'm even going to do the same at the end of January. I have my own fact map that like I took from our event to go home and really sit down, but also just look back. Because I love what you said. And just one more thing, when you said the more you make those changes and decisions, they never stop being scary, but you're less scared of making them.
Yeah, you're kind of like, bring it on.
You're right. And you and I can sit here and be like, fuck, event week. I sat there and I'm like, I need triple deodorant today. It's a big day. Like, it was so stressful. But now I sit here and I'm like, I already did that.
Right.
2020, we fucking got this.
Right.
So, guys, thank you for being here on our 100th episode.
Woo! And remember, you're just not there yet. So stay in your lane and focus on what you need to do one thing at a time and prioritize what you need to do. And remember, progression is on you. So
always.
You can move as fast or as slow as you want in this game. But just know it doesn't get any easier how slow or how fast you move. So it just determines like...
It just takes longer to get where you want to go if you go slow.
So we have people in the program that go slow, some that go fast. Either way, we're kind of after results.
Yeah. So guys, thank you for being here on the Big Money Stylist podcast. You can watch us and our jazz hands.
Jazz hands?
On BigMoneyStylist
now. A hoodie and what does my hat say?
New York for some
New
reason.
New York!
Yeah,
I don't know why I did cheer hands, but...
Ta-da! So you can watch us on BigMoneyStylistNow.com. And if you do, because I really think you should, if you get your journal and you write down where you were, where you're at, send us a DM on Instagram.
Yeah.
I love DMs. I read them. I try to read them all the time, but we would love to hear from you guys.
Like those throwback, what are those things on Instagram that are trending right now? Throwback like Thursday, but it's like 10-year challenge.
Oh, the 10-year
challenge. Oh my God.
20-year challenge. I was 9 years old.
Yeah, I wasn't.
You were 16?
Yep.
Oh, getting ready to drive? Yeah. I was not even in double digits.
Yeah, let's just not go there.
All right, guys, you are all amazing. And hey, we'll see you next week for episode 101.
Ooh.